Hello once again and welcome to Learn Python 3 the Hard Way, exercise 19. In this exercise we are going to be covering functions again, but again this is another exercise in combining things. So we know how to make a function. Exercise 18 we talked about def to define a function, and then you can put things underneath it. You do that by doing an indent. You have to make sure that your function ends in a colon. Okay, so we know how to do that, and we know how to call a function we make. So that means we can combine things. We can combine f strings, print. We can also do math in the function call. So first up, let me run this real quick. 19.py. Okay, so a whole bunch of output happens. And what you'll see is this output is repeated over and over because we are running this function over and over. That's sort of the point of functions. Instead of taking these four print statements here and putting them 1, 2, 3, 4 times, we put them up in this function, in a way pulled the print statements up to there, and then just call the function. This saves us time, and it also helps with bugs. If we find a bug in one of these lines of code, we only have to go to one place to fix it. If we were to replicate this, copy and paste that over and over again, we would have to fix it everywhere, and I guarantee we'll miss it. Now, other things that we're combining. In the first call to our cheese and crackers, we just pass two regular old numbers, no problem. Those two numbers then get passed up to this variable, cheese count, and inside this function, this is something that's sort of important. Inside this function, cheese count becomes 20, and then we can use it. 20 and box of crackers will be 30. Okay, straightforward. But what happens if we use a variable? So let's assign 10 and 50 to two variables, amount of cheese and amount of crackers. Now here's what happens. Python takes amount of cheese and amount of crackers and sort of lets the 10 and the 5 temporarily become the value of cheese count and box of crackers here. So this variable doesn't really have much connection to this variable here. What happens is inside the function cheese and crackers, this is temporarily its own little world, what we call its own context or its own stack as another word that gets used for it. So, or frame might be another one. So inside here, cheese count and boxes of crackers is all in its own world. It's almost like there's a copy of it. Not really. We say it's a reference to it, but you can do all the changes you want. And then when this function exits, cheese count and box of crackers goes away. It disappears. And we jump back to here, and now amount of cheese and amount of crackers is still what was out here. So you'll understand this as you move on. You might try to change amount of cheese inside the cheese and crackers function, and it won't work. Okay, so then we do the next thing. We do math. So if you can do math in your print, right? If I did a print with a bunch of math and commas, I could do the same thing with a cheese and crackers call. And then I can combine those two again. I can use the variable plus some math and call cheese and crackers. Okay, so what you should do is use this as a debugging opportunity. So if I were to debug a function, what I would probably do is I would do enter here, and I would say cheese count equals count, and then I might say boxes of crackers equals, comma, boxes of crackers. Okay, so that's the first thing I would do. Okay, and what that's going to do is that's going to tell me when that function enters. Now I want to do this. That tells me when the function exits. Exit cheese and crackers. Okay, so now what I'm going to be able to do is know when this function gets called and what is passed to the variables. Oh, this is spelled wrong. So let's see. I think I might have a little bug in there. Yeah, cheesed. I have to save it. There we go. Okay, so now you can see what I've got is when it calls it, so this is an exit. So this is a previous function call up above. So let's scroll up just a little bit. Right? So here's my call. Now it goes, I enter cheese and crackers. So now I know where my functions begin and end. And this comes in handy, especially when you have functions that call functions. Then I know my values are 20 and 30, so I can work with it. And then when I exit, I could print out more info to keep track of what changed. Then I get my next call. Now I know that's 10 and 50, so I could print out the variables that I used to assign that. And then finally, and so on, I exit, and then I enter again. And I know I have 30 and 11. So I know it prints 30 and 11, and then I exit, and then I enter again. And I know that I have this much, and then I exit. So in this one, what I want you to do is break it like normal, practice your debugging, and see how much information you can print out before and after you go into these functions. It'll help you later because, remember, you can't stare at code to figure out what it's doing. You got to print, 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 print. So once you get used to printing everything out, then you'll be able to start to see how the flow of this Python goes into a function and out of a function. And that'll teach you what's going on when Python is calling functions, especially when we start getting into functions that call functions. Okay, that's the end of exercise 19. See you at 20.